As you can see from our housing sequence, our very first shape is going to be a simple rectangle. So to do a simple rectangle, from the Sketch tab in the Command Manager, I'm going to click not on the center rectangle but on the corner rectangle, and I'll express why we do that in a few more steps. And now this is where it gets very different from our experience in AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, we would try and find the exact location where we wanted to place the corner of the rectangle and then define the opposite corner. But that's not what we're going to do here, because this is a parametric modeling software where we create geometry and sketch entities and then constrain them with things like relations and dimensions. So I'm just going to randomly place a rectangle down without even giving any kind of XY coordinate to where the lower left corner is or any kind of size indication. This is a rectangle just placed out in space, not defined in any way. Now by default my rectangle is highlighted on creation. To de-highlight it or to unhighlight it, I'm not sure how to say that, you can press the escape key, which also gets you out of the rectangle command. And what you'll first notice probably is the fact that the lines are blue. This means that these lines are unconstrained. I can take any of these corners of this rectangle and move them however I want. What you might notice next is these green little boxes that are next to each of the lines. The one on the two on the left and right are vertical lines. The two on the bottom and top are horizontal lines. These are what we refer to as constraints. In AutoCAD, we only define things with coordinates and dimensions, and sometimes we'd use the object snap as well, but even then those weren't constraining our geometry. We could use the move command to move them wherever we wanted. These green boxes are representing geometric constraints that are constraining these four lines that are making a rectangle, saying that the left and the right line have to remain vertical at all times, and the top and the bottom line have to remain horizontal at all times. So there's nothing I could do to this rectangle as long as these constraints are in place to make the top and bottom line out of horizontal or the left and right line out of vertical. These green boxes here are showing that these lines are constrained horizontally and vertically. The next thing we're going to do is go up to the Sketch tab in the Command Manager again, click the down arrow of line, click on center line, which is really just a construction line. We have experience using construction lines in AutoCAD and maybe even Revit. And I want you to go up to the bottom right corner of the rectangle until you see that it's highlighted in orange and a yellow icon that shows two circles shows up. See how I go up to the point and the point becomes orange and there is the yellow icon. That yellow icon is saying, hey, if you click here, you're going to make a concentric mate between the endpoint of the line you're about to create and the lower right corner of the rectangle. So I will left click to place the first point and then left click again until I see the orange highlighted dot in the top left corner and the yellow concentric relation box right next to my cursor. And if I press escape to escape the command, I will see that this diagonal construction line, it is connected at the bottom right no matter how I move the rectangle, and at the top left. This is what's called a coincident relation. This is called a coincident relation. There's nothing I can do, no way I can move or orient this rectangle to make this diagonal construction line that I just drew not connected at the lower right and upper left corners. There's nothing I can do. It's always going to be constrained at those 2 points, which is going to be advantageous to me and us really, which we'll see in a moment. So we've covered vertical and horizontal constraints and coincident constraints, which really just means that a point is lying on another point or on a line or curve. Two things are connected. That's what coincident means. And the reason we don't see the green boxes is because those coincident mates are automatically created. So next we'll add a midpoint constraint, or a midpoint relation as SOLIDWORKS defines it. We'll add it between this horizontal line midpoint, which I can see in yellow or orange here. And to get it to show up, I really just click the line, and then it usually pops up right after that, or if you go up to the middle you will see it. So I have the construction line selected. I'm going to hold down Control and click the origin point. If I go over to the left, I will see that my property manager is activated. Under selected entities, it shows line 5, which is my construction line, and point 1 at origin, which is the point at the origin. What I'll also see is any existing relations. We can also call these constraints, which there are none, and the possibilities for adding relations. What we want to add is this midpoint relation here. Watch what happens when I click the midpoint relation. The midpoint of this construction line was automatically placed on the origin point. And here I can see a intentional coincident or a intentional midpoint relation green box that has showed up right next to the construction line midpoint and the origin point. I'm going to delete this relation to illustrate how else you can do this. And to delete a relation, you just click on the relation once and press the delete key on your keyboard. Now I am back to normal. Another way you can add this midpoint relation without using your keyboard is to go up to the Sketch tab in the Command Manager. Right here where you see this perpendicular and this eye, and it says Display Delete Relations. Click the down arrow and click Add Relation. And then click on your construction line and the origin point. Here we have the same property manager that we had before. We can click on midpoint. Notice that it's in bold, which is SOLIDWORKS telling us that it recommends this type of relation. SOLIDWORKS can guess what I want to do with my design. So I'll click that and I get the same result. To exit out of this property manager, I can press Escape or click this green check mark.